Hello, I'm an SAT reading teacher here at Elite, and I will be going over some reading questions as samples. Okay, so we'll first go over the main idea question here. Okay, so reading through the text, believing that living in an impractical space can heighten awareness and even improve health, conceptual artists Madeline Jins and Shusaku Arakawa designed an apartment building in Japan to be more fanciful than functional. A kitchen counter is chest high on one side and knee high on the other. A ceiling has a door to nowhere. The effect is disorienting but invigorating. After 4 years there, filmmaker Nobu Yamaoka reported significant health benefits. So, if we look at this being a main idea question, it tends to be that we'll be looking at the first or the last sentence to find our answer. There are instances where it's just going to be a comprehensive summary, or it could be that it is going to be the second sentence instead of the first or last, because the first sentence in this instance would just be general, like background info. If that's the case, then that's when we're going to look at the second sentence. But in this instance, if we just look at the first sentence, it talks about how an impractical space can heighten awareness and improve health. And these specifically here, this middle sentence is just going to be an example of specifically this idea. So then, if we look at the very last sentence, the effect is disorienting but invigorating. This kind of re-establishes or kind of reconfirms the same idea that it's going to be giving us those significant health benefits. So both the first sentence and the last sentence, they're emphasizing that health benefit idea. So ultimately, it is that impractical space is going to lead to very positive health benefits. So that means this is what we want to look for within our answer choice. Okay, so going through the answers, number one, although inhabiting a home surrounded by fanciful features, um, such as those designed by Jins and Arakawa, can be rejuvenating, it is unsustainable. So the fact is here that because they're using this contrast word in the very beginning, right, it is going to be that this, after the comma, this ends up being our focus. So this being our focus, it is unsustainable. This means that this is too negative, right? We wanted something to emphasize the positive benefits, not the negatives. So that's why this is going to be incorrect. B, designing disorienting spaces is the most effective way to create a physically stimulating environment. Now, this one does talk about physically stimulating. This could potentially be positive or this could be neutral. Now, either way, being positive or neutral, it talks about physically stimulating, but it doesn't mention anything about the health benefits, right? So we're going to leave this just because potentially it's going to be positive or neutral. And so it being physically stimulating, that's questionable. But is it about health benefits? I don't think so. But we don't want to be too rash here. So I would leave it for now. C, as a filmmaker, Yamaoka has long supported the designs of conceptual artists. Now, this one doesn't even talk about whether it's positive or negative benefits regarding having this impractical Space. We only have the idea that this person supports him, and Yamaoka is not really the focus of the text, so we don't really care about this. D, although impractical, the design of the apartment building may improve the well-being of the building's residents. So again, here it uses although and it doesn't say impractical, but here we have our answer. It's impractical space, impractical. And then it says here health benefits, and the well being could be the same thing as health benefits. So in this case, we're looking at the use of synonym, and synonyms are a good way to kind of indicate whether we're going to have the right answer. So ultimately, our best answer for this question is going to be D. Right? Even though this one we had left it, we are not sure if this is necessary since we already have something that fulfills all both of these instances that we pointed out as part of the main idea. So it's only natural that D is the answer and B is not as good. So the next question is going to be one of these claim questions. So there's going to be two types. This is the first one we're looking at where the answer choice is going to be quotations. So the quotations often are hard to understand because they're either using kind of like poetic or old English language, whereas this one is, which is the case in this one, where it's not super difficult in the sense of like it using old language, but at the same time, it's still going to be a little bit more difficult because they're not straightforward like we do in modern English. So if we read through here, we want to first find out where the claim is. Normally, for these kinds of questions, the claims are always going to be in the last sentence or the sentence right before the blank. So that's going to be true with this as well. In the poem, which presents a nighttime scene on a body of water, Lowell describes an element of nature as an active participant in the experience. So this is what we want to focus on. This is what we want to find within our answer choice. It's the fact that nature is an active participant. Okay, so if we look at A, through the water, the moon writes her legend in light on the smooth, wet sand. So it's the fact that the moon is writing on sand. Now, this moon is going to be that nature, and she is going to be an active participant, right? Because she's writing. So even though she may not literally be writing, by using this word, it makes it seem like she's actually do something in regards to interacting with nature or in some sort of experience, right? In the experience specifically being on this body of water. So this through the water idea, that indicates that she is participating in that. So naturally, I think A would be our best answer, but let's also go through the other answers. B, softly the water ripples against the canoe's curving side. So in this case, we're just saying that the water is moving next to the canoe, and it doesn't indicate that active participant idea. Yes, it is moving next to the water, but how do we know that like maybe the water is manipulating it or water is trying to do something actively? There's no indication of that, so that's why this is going to be the wrong answer. C, or like the snow white petals, white drop from an overblown rose. Okay, so same thing here. There's nothing indicates that this is actively participating. This just says it drops from the overblown rose. It's just dropping. There's nothing indicating that I fled from the overblown rose, right? There needs to be like this personification almost where we're using words that we actively use like to describe our actions. But in this case, if it's just dropping, it's not indicating that they're trying to make that happen. So that's why this one doesn't work as well. D, but the moon in her wayward beauty is ever and always the same. So again, this one doesn't talk about being active, right? It's just saying that she's always the same. That's basically not active at all. So the only answer that we can have is going to be A. Okay, so the next question here is going to be the perspectives of text 1 and text 2, the dual passages. So for this one, we want to see specifically like what the passage 1's argument is, and then we also want to look at what passage 2's argument. So if we read through the text, in 1916, Sykes disputed claims that The Two Noble Kingsmen was co-authored by William Shakespeare and John Fletcher. Sykes felt Fletcher's contributions to the play were obvious. Fletcher had a distinct style in his other plays, so much so that lines with that style were considered sufficient evidence of Fletcher's authorship. But for the lines not deemed to be by Fletcher, Sykes felt that their depiction of women indicated that their author was not Shakespeare but Philip Massinger. So here he's basically saying that text 1 is going to be mainly written by Fletcher. But there are some bits regarding the women depiction. So the women depiction is going to be by Massinger. So he's arguing that there is no Shakespeare at all. All right, now let's look at text 2. Scholars have accepted The Two Noble Kingsmen was co-authored by Shakespeare since the 1970s. It appears in all major one-volume editions of Shakespeare's complete works. Though scholars disagree about who wrote what exactly, it generally held that on the basis of style, Shakespeare wrote all of the first act and most of the last, while John Fletcher authored most of the 3 middle acts. So in this case, they're saying, okay, Shakespeare is going to write first and last, and then Fletcher is going to be the middle 3. So if we look at what they're going to agree on, we can probably just use this because this is like the condensed summary of what text 1 and text 2 are. A, John Fletcher writing has a unique, readily identifiable style. So because here it says that um, on the basis of style, right? Fletcher authored like the three middle acts. But then on this one, he says that, like, also says that the play were obvious. He had a distinct style. So potentially this could also be true. This one we can't necessarily eliminate it. So I would leave that for now. And then if we look at B, the women characters in John Fletcher's plays are similar to the women characters in Philip Massinger's play. We don't know. They don't talk about Philip Massinger's work. It really only focuses on the two noble kingsmen. So, and one of the stories or one of the texts, they don't even mention anything about Fletcher, right? Or sorry, not Fletcher, but they don't even mention anything about Massinger. So we don't care about this. See, the two noble kinsmen belong in one volume compilations of Shakespeare's complete plays. So we don't know if it belongs in it. We do know that he said that it is going to be in all major volumes except one. That doesn't necessarily mean does it belong there. Also, text one doesn't even mention that at all, so it doesn't matter. And then D, Philip Massinger's style in the first and last acts is an homage to Shakespeare's style. We don't know this either. We don't know if he was trying to contribute it or attribute it to Shakespeare, so we don't know that. So A can be the only answer because we do know that both texts do talk about Fletcher first and foremost, and then the first text clearly says he has a distinct style, and text 2 clearly also says, right, it is held that on the basis of style, Fletcher wrote the last three or the middle three. So that indicates then to us, okay, clearly he does have a distinct style according to both of these texts or both of the authors. So our answer can only be A. For these types of questions, this type of question is going to be seen sometimes, but there are other instances where it's going to be where it's like text one replies to text two. These are also other common questions that the dual text questions are going to be. And normally that's going to be a little bit easier to figure out. You just need to figure out what the claim is on both texts and then it really play into the positives and negatives. So in this instance, because they were looking for the agreement, we want to just look through the text and find specifically, okay, what exactly is similar or what they said in both texts that we can see there would be true, right? And in this case, the commonality between the text was Fletcher. So we wanted to focus on Fletcher for the most part. And specifically here, because they said style and style in both of them, that's how we can find the answer. Right, so this is going to be a detail question. So we're looking for how the people in the capital regard Dr. Malsufrido. So this is just looking at, okay, how do they feel about him? Okay. So really, you have to just find the evidence directly in the text for the most part. So if we look at this one, it says, it is a saying in the capital of Mexico that Dr. Malsufrido carries more family secrets under his hat than any archbishop. So even just from the very, very first sentence, this kind of indicates, right? People say, or it is a saying, people say that Dr. Malsufrido carries more family secrets under his hat. So he has a lot of secrets. Okay, great. And then it talks about that doctor's hat, right? But we don't really care about that because we're looking at the opinions of Dr. Malsufrido. So the hat is unimportant. And then it says, when the doctor takes it off, the family secrets do not fly out like a flock of parrots, but remain nicely bottled up beneath a dome. So lots of secrets, and they're going to be well kept because they're not flying out. Right. So if they're not flying out, evidently he's not going to be telling people here and there about the secrets. He's only just going to be keeping them to himself. So the answer choice we want here is going to be something in regards to this idea. Right. It's directly within the text we've seen in both this line as well as this line. That's where we'll have the evidence. So A, many have come to tolerate him despite his disheveled appearance. Nothing about secrets, so we don't care. B, few feel concerned that he will divulge or reveal their confidences. Their confidence in this case is referring to secrets. So that's why our answer is probably going to be B, right? Because they're well kept secrets. So people are probably not going to feel like that he's going to reveal those secrets. See, some dislike how freely he discusses his own family, doesn't mention anything about his own family, and we know that he's not very free to begin with. So both of these aspects are going to be wrong. So that's not correct. D, most would be unimpressed by him if it were it not for his professional expertise. Again, not about secrets. So the only ones that were about secrets were B and C, but obviously B is going to be our best answer because he is well kept. The secrets are well kept and he does not divulge them, right? Few are going to feel that he will. So it only makes sense that B is going to be our best answer. Next question is a vocab and context question. For these ones, we're just going to have to look at the context. Always use context, right, to figure it out. You could always plug in. You could play positives or negatives. Those are the best ways. And for word choices you don't know, think about like the stems. So you could think about the prefix or you could think about the suffix. Those are two options in kind of helping you narrow down the answer choices. Another way that we could also do this is in the worst case scenario, think about like, okay, does this word sound negative or sound positive? That's the only way that you could do it if you don't know the word at all, right? Have no sort of inkling at all. So here, if you also know words that are similar, right, or very similar, or they kind of are the like verb or action form, then you can kind of guess as to what that word is going to mean. Okay, so let's go ahead and look into the text. Social robots designed to assist and interact with humans have been increasingly used in various settings, including healthcare and education. Despite their potential benefits, some critics argue that these robots could blank human interaction and lead to negative consequences. Now, here they talked about that we're supposed to assist and interact with humans, but the benefits, so that means whatever this says the benefits, whatever comes after is going to be contrasting those benefits, so it's going to be negative. So what are they going to be doing to human interaction? Something negative to it. Now if you look at A through D, I think we might know some of these words, but maybe you don't know some of them. Now, anything positive, right, like promote, right, is going to be positive. And then I would say catalog is neutral. And then intensify is going to be neutral as well. To intensify human interaction, if we were to plug that in, that means human interactions are going to be probably greater. So in the context of this, it's probably going to be positive. So again, this would not be correct. Now, I think some students will not know what supplant means. So we're stuck between A and B. Even if we don't know what supplant is, we should just go ahead and see if catalog makes sense. Again, if it's neutral, it's not opposite of the idea that it's benefits, right? We said that it should be opposite of benefits, so we're looking for the negative idea. Now, catalog being neutral is not really going to be the opposite of benefits, so it only makes sense that it can't be the answer. So A would have to be our answer then. Supplant means replace. So if knowing the word or knowing the definition of supplant, this could clearly be our answer because we're saying that robots are going to take over human interaction. We're going to focus on interacting with robots as opposed to humans, and that's going to be that negative consequence or the negatives that contrast that benefit. So evidently, A would be our only answer. Next question we're looking at is overall structure. So, overall structure, we basically want to be able to condense each of these sentences or parts of the sentence to see whether or not this is going to be focusing on generalizing it in a big, broad sense, right? So, if we look here, using NASA's powerful James Webb Space Telescope, colleagues measured the wavelengths of light traveling through the atmosphere of this exoplanet outside our solar system. Okay, so we know that we're using something specifically for science related questions, right? If you're using this is kind of the method and they're measuring it. So this is what they're doing. This is kind of like their aim or their goal, right? That kind of thing. So we can see that it's going to be that steps that they're taking or like the goals that they're doing in order to measure whatever this is. And then different molecules absorb blah blah. And the wavelengths measured showed the presence of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Okay, so here it's showed, so this is probably going to be those results. Okay, and then the last one is the findings, right? So this finding is referring back to here, but the finding, it offers whatever this is, then this is going to be like the conclusion, or you could say like the what they kind of imagine it. So kind of inference regarding like the future, right? So it's mostly like the conclusion, what their beliefs are after potentially finding that. So we probably want something regarding like the method or like the measurements, right? Sorry, like not the goals, but like the measurements and the measurements regarding the method. So what steps they're taking there. And then here, so method and then results and then the conclusion, right? What their hypothesis or maybe the future could lead to. So A, it discusses a method. They mention the method, then states why an alternative method. They don't mention anything about an alternative method, so that does not make sense. B, it describes how researchers made a scientific discovery, then explains the importance of that discovery. So here, this could be true, right? Because they do say they have the discovery, the results, and then explains the importance. The conclusion is often that importance. So this could potentially be the answer. So I would leave that. And then C, it outlines the steps taken in a scientific research. Okay. So then this is the steps. So that could be true. And then presents a hypothesis based on that study. But here it just says that it's going to be the first decisive evidence and it has the potential, but we don't have a specific hypothesis, so that's why this doesn't work. And then D, it examines how a group of scientists reached a conclusion, then shows how other scientists challenged. Nothing about challenging it, so that does not make sense. Now, remember that in this instance, order for structure questions, order is very important. It should always be the first and then the second. It can never be flipped in any sort of other way. It always has to be the first one and then the other. And we always want to make sure we're looking at it into two separate chunks, right? So we're looking at this and then we're looking at this. In some instances, it could be more than two, it could be three. Then you want to separate it into three different chunks so that you could make sure that each aspect is going to be true. Okay, so then evidently, right, our answer can only be B.